I'm Nicole Thompson, 28, the youngest in my family. Ever since I got the call about a family meeting in Pine Valley, California, I've been bracing myself like a storm's on the horizon. My sister's voice still echoes from our last conversation. You can't even afford a real car. She laughed, her tone sharp as glass.
The whole family buys that story that I'm some broke dreamer scraping by on odd freelance jobs too stubborn to admit I've failed. I'm still living simply because their idea of success SUVs, designer watches, country club memberships has never meant a thing to me. But their smug pity, especially my sister's, cuts deeper than I'd like to admit. It's not just the words, it's years of being written off as the screw-up who'd never amount to anything. Now they've called this meeting because Mom's hip is busted, Dad's memory is slipping, and I know they expect me to toss in pennies while they play the big shots. I'm on a commercial flight clutching my worn backpack, fully aware that when I walk into that room, it'll be all side-eye glances and fake concern. Inside, I'm torn. Part of me wants to keep my secret and avoid the drama. The other part, it's ready to turn the table so fast they won't see it coming. And yes, I've prepared something that will silence the entire dinner table.
Before I dive into what happened next, I want to know what time is it where you are and which city are you reading from? Stay with me. You're not going to believe what's coming.
Being the youngest in our family in Pine Valley, California, meant I was always the oddball in a town obsessed with vineyards, wine tastings, and the kind of success that shows up in a shiny new pickup or a gated estate. My older brother Brandon, now 38, was the poster child for that life. He was the high school baseball star who could have gone pro, but instead went to UCLA, married into a family that owns half the valley's wineries, and now lives in a mansion with a view of the rolling hills. He's the guy who closes real estate deals over golf at the country club, always bragging about his latest $1 million commission, like it's nothing. My sister Kimberly, 32, was the middle kid, the one who ran the show as student council president, organized local wine festival fundraisers, and turned that charm into a marketing director gig at a big LA firm. She's got the Instagram-perfect life, designer dresses, charity galas at Napa resorts, and a condo with floor-to-ceiling windows. Mom and Dad tried to treat us equal, but it was obvious they saw Brandon and Kimberly as the ones who made it. The kids who followed the script of good degrees, marriage, and a mortgage on a house with a vineyard view. Me, I was the weirdo coding apps in my bedroom while they were sipping Cabernet at family tastings, dreaming up ways to help local farms cut their carbon footprint with tech. They called it a hobby, something I'd grow out of once I got serious about college, or settled down like Kimberly. When I told them at 18 I was ditching college to start my own company, the dinner table went silent, like I'd just cursed out loud. Dad stared at his plate, muttering, "You're throwing your life away, Nicole. This isn't how we do things." Mom fretted about security, saying, "Why can't you be practical like your brother, or find someone stable like your sister Brandon?" Smirked and said, "Come on, sis. Startups are for Silicon Valley wannabes. Get a real job." Kimberly just sighed, whispering later, "Don't make us look bad, okay?" That rejection burned, but the real knife came at a family wine festival that summer right after graduation. Flashback to me, standing by the tasting tents, nervous but excited, sharing my idea for an app that tracks carbon emissions for small businesses, thinking they'd finally get it. Brandon nodded, took notes. And a few months later, I found out through a winery contact he'd pitched my concept at his firm's board meeting, claiming it was his own, and landed a fat promotion with a bonus check for innovation. It felt like a punch to the gut, my own brother stealing from me, and I stayed quiet, thinking family meant swallowing the hurt. Then Kimberly made it worse, spreading rumors to her wine club friends and our cousins that I was unstable for skipping college. "Nicole's just chasing dreams that'll crash," she'd say. It got me uninvited to family weddings, cut off from local business contacts who could have backed my early projects. One night after hearing her rumors at a diner, I called her up, voice shaking, and she brushed me off with, "Grow up, Nicole, nobody trusts a dropout." That betrayal, Brandon's theft, Kimberly's sabotage twisted my hurt into something tougher like a wall I built to keep them out. It wasn't just pain anymore, it was resilience laced with their jealousy I could feel under their jabs like they knew my ideas threatened their perfect lives. I left Pine Valley with $300 from waitressing at a local tap room dead set on proving them wrong. They bet I'd be back in months broke and begging for a job at Brandon's firm or a spot helping Kimberly's galas. When I didn't, they spun a story I was barely surviving in some sketchy LA apartment chasing dead-end dreams. Truth was, I hit rock bottom. My first startup tanked after a shady partner left me $10,000 in debt. Second one folded when investors bailed during a tech slump, leaving me couch surfing and eating dollar store noodles for weeks. Those failures echoed their doubts, stung hard, reigniting that old hurt but flipped it into grit. I worked 18-hour days coding in coffee shops until I nailed a carbon tracking patent that changed the game for eco-focused businesses. 3 years of sweat paid off when my company EcoGuard caught fire signing deals with California wineries going green and got bought out for $40 million 6 months ago. I kept my leadership role and a chunk of equity, but never told my family. On holiday calls, they'd assume I was struggling. Brandon offering me a low-level job at his firm to get you on your feet, Kimberly mailing old clothes with notes like, "For your interviews, sis." I'd nod, say thanks, and move on, but inside their words fueled a new edge. That resilience now had a bitter twist of their jealousy, like they sensed my wins and hated it. Keeping my success secret was my shield. Let them underestimate me, show their true colors without me having to justify a thing. It freed me to focus on what mattered, like funding clean water projects in rural areas instead of buying flashy cars or estates. But those betrayals, Brandon's stolen idea, Kimberly's rumors, made my success feel defiant, almost like a quiet middle finger to their world. That wall of secrecy held strong, kept me safe from more sabotage, but it left me isolated too. When the call about Mom and Dad's health came 3 weeks ago, that wall started to crack, pulling me back into the family mess I'd fought so hard to escape. When the call came 3 weeks ago from Brandon about Mom's broken hip and Dad's dementia progressing faster than expected, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach tighten like a vine wrapping around a trellis. He laid it out in his usual bossy tone, saying we needed to discuss care options and how we'd split the costs, adding with that patronizing edge, "If you can make it back and contribute what you can, that'd be great." I didn't argue, just booked a commercial flight from LA to the small airport near Pine Valley, telling myself this was the time to face them without the mask. On the plane, I stared out the window, ignoring the in-flight wine list that reminded me of home's vineyard culture, and pulled on my faded jeans, a plain sweater with a tiny rip at the sleeve, and old sneakers that had seen better days. My assistant Brittany watched me pack the night before, shaking her head as I stuffed everything into a beat-up backpack instead of my usual suitcase. "You're sitting on $40 million and dressing like a college kid heading home for break," she said, handing me the itinerary. I shrugged, tucking my hair into a ponytail. "That's how they see me, and I'm not ready to change that yet." The flight gave me time to think about why I kept up the act. In business, being underestimated meant people let their guard down, handing me advantages and deals, but with family it meant no pressure to measure up to their standards. Deeper though it was, protection from the pain their betrayal caused, like when Brandon stole my idea, or Kimberly spread those rumors, turning family gatherings into minefields. As the plane landed, I gripped my backpack tighter, undecided if I'd reveal everything or keep playing the struggling youngest sister. The taxi ride through the valley's winding roads lined with grapevines brought back flashes of childhood, but I pushed them aside, focusing on the meeting ahead. When the cab pulled up to our family home, a cozy ranch-style house with a small vineyard in the back, Brandon was waiting on the porch in his pressed khakis and polo shirt, checking his watch, like I was late for a board meeting. "Finally," he said, without a hug, eyeing my outfit and backpack with a smirk. "Flight delayed, or did you hitchhike from the airport?" I forced a smile, stepping inside. "Good to see you too." "Brandon, the flight was fine. How are Mom and Dad? He took my bag, his face mixing pity and superiority as he noted its frayed straps. As good as can be, I've been here since yesterday setting things up. Kimberly arrives soon. You're in your old room. Nothing's changed. As I followed him in, he added casually, if you need help with travel costs or anything while you're here, just say the word. I know. Time off isn't easy financially for you. That first jab landed like expected, but I nodded thanks, keeping my cool. Dad was napping in his recliner, looking frailer, with more gray in his hair. Mom was in the kitchen, moving slow from her surgery, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. Nicole, honey, she said, hugging me carefully. You look tired. Are you eating okay on your budget? Call if you need grocery money. I helped her to a chair, assuring her I was fine, and asked about her physical therapy. Brandon hovered, interrupting with doctor terms he'd researched, pulling out a binder of care options with cost breakdowns and ratings. We'll go through it all tomorrow, he said, closing it with emphasis on the prices, a reminder of what he thought I could afford. I nodded, knowing my bank account had enough to cover everything 10 times over, but tonight wasn't the time. Mom insisted on making dinner despite her mobility, so I offered to help. But Brandon had ordered in from a fancy winery cafe. Roast chicken herb potatoes, fresh salads, and artisan bread that Mom fussed over. This must cost a fortune, she said, arranging it on her good plates. Brandon, you're so generous. He waved it off with false modesty. No big deal, the firm had a good quarter, and family moments like this are worth it. The doorbell rang and Kimberly swept in with her usual flair, carrying designer bags, her hair perfect in a blowout despite travel. She hugged Mom gently, then distributed gifts: a bottle of rare Cabernet for Dad, a cashmere scarf for Mom, a leather wallet for Brandon. When she got to me, her smile faltered. And for you, Nicole? I figured you'd like this. She handed me a gift card to a budget clothing store, explaining, your wardrobe seemed dated last visit. This should help with professional pieces for job hunting. I pocketed it evenly, ignoring the dig about employment. Thanks, Kimberly, thoughtful as always. She patted my arm. We all want you to succeed. Speaking of which, my firm just landed a huge client, renovating the office with valley views. Dinner talk revolved around their wins. Brandon's big promotion, Kimberly's gala that raised thousands for local arts, her husband's golf tournament at the winery club. When it turned to me, it was all concern. What about you, Nicole? Kimberly asked, sipping wine. Any news on your projects? I replied vaguely, small business stuff, freelancing mostly. Brandon cut in. I know folks who need basic app work, nothing fancy but steady pay, better than gigs. I swallowed the urge to mention my gigs sold for $40 million, thanking him instead. Dad stirred, asking, still in that cramped apartment with loud neighbors? That was 5 years and 2 homes ago. I own a loft with ocean views now, but they didn't need to know yet. It's comfortable, Dad. Kimberly laughed. Comfort's relative. Remember when Nicole thought success was affording brand name wine instead of box stuff? Everyone chuckled at my simplicity, and the talk shifted to parents' care needs. Brandon went executive mode, saying, reality is Mom and Dad need more than Medicare covers. Their savings aren't infinite for the quality they deserve. Kimberly added, we've scouted exclusive facilities near us with wine tasting socials and top medical care. Throughout they used we, excluding me, their glances saying I was the youngest who couldn't contribute much. Premium costs, of course, Brandon said, eyeing me, but Kimberly and I can handle most, to be fair by means. Kimberly nodded sweetly. Everyone gives what they can. We don't expect you to match us. Even a small amount helps. My cheeks burned, not from inability, but from them writing me off without asking, years of assumptions piling up. Mom sighed, patting my hand. You've got potential, Nicole. I don't know why you didn't finish that degree. You could be successful like your brother. Different paths, Mom, I said quietly. Not everyone defines success the same. Brandon nodded condescendingly. True, but some definitions are more practical. Security, family care, those are real markers. The digs kept coming subtle but steady, and I held my composure, debating my next move. Then a short flashback hit me from 2 years ago when Dad's first dementia signs showed. I'd secretly wired anonymous donations to their account for doctor visits, pretending it was insurance refunds. One time I overheard Mom thanking the bank error on the phone, while I sat silent at dinner knowing it was me covering thousands in bills. That memory fueled my rising resentment, twisting into a boiling point but with a new layer: anticipation for the reveal, like a cork about to pop on a vintage bottle. By dessert, I'd decided tomorrow's meeting would be when they learned the truth, but for now the tension simmered, building to a boil. The family meeting kicked off at 9 sharp in the living room of our Pine Valley home, the morning light filtering through windows overlooking Mom's small vineyard. Brandon stood at the front like a CEO in his pressed polo, and slacks his laptop hooked to a projector, flashing a PowerPoint titled Parental Care Options and Costs. Mom and Dad sat in their usual armchairs, Mom wincing from her hip pain, Dad staring blankly, struggling to follow. Kimberly perched on the couch, her designer skirt and blouse screaming LA, scrolling her phone between slides. I took the wobbly stool in the corner, the spot they always left for the youngest, feeling their eyes skim over me like I was barely there. Brandon clicked through slides of upscale care facilities, manicured grounds, wine-tasting socials, memory care programs, for Dad gourmet dining with valley views. These are the top options for quality medical care and social engagement, he said, his voice all business. This one's our pick: a new community with private suites, walking paths, even a vineyard tour program for residents. The costs flashed on the screen, thousands monthly, and Mom gasped softly, gripping Dad's hand. "That's steep," she murmured. Brandon nodded, flipping to a budget slide. "Their retirement savings won't cover it long term, so we're splitting the gap as a family." He glanced at me, his tone heavy with assumption. "Kimberly and I can handle 60% each, taking 30, which leaves 10%, about $800 monthly for you, Nicole, if that's doable." Kimberly chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. "We know your situation's tight, so if 800's too much, maybe you could pitch in with visits or something. Nobody expects you to match us." Their words landed like a slap, assuming I was too broke to contribute, never asking what I could actually do. I stayed quiet, letting their narrative play out, curious how far they'd push it. Before I could respond, I needed a moment alone and slipped to the hallway to grab water. That's when I overheard them, Brandon and Kimberly, whispering in the kitchen, their voices low but clear. "She'll have to pay whatever we say," Brandon said, a smug edge in his tone. "Where else can the failure go? She's got no real job? No options?" Kimberly giggled softly. "Exactly. Let's set her share low, so she feels useful, but we control the rest." My blood ran cold, their plan to exploit me as the useless youngest hitting like a betrayal stacked on top of their past ones. I clenched my fists, heart pounding, and returned to the living room, face neutral. Brandon wrapped up his presentation, emphasizing the costs again. "Premium care isn't cheap, but it's what they deserve." Kimberly nodded, leaning forward. "Nicole, we're just being practical. You can't even afford a car, right? That taxi you rolled up in yesterday looked rough." Mom, trying to soften it, added, "It's just junk. Dear, you deserve better than that old thing you drive." The room erupted in laughter. Brandon's deep chuckle, Kimberly's high-pitched giggle, even Dad's confused smile joining in. Their mockery lit a fuse inside me, the years of their assumptions, and now this calculated plan to squeeze me dry, snapping something loose. I smirked, pulling out my phone, and dialed Brittany, my assistant, keeping my voice steady. "Hey, it's me. Come pick me up now." I paused, listening to her confirm. "Yeah. 5 minutes is perfect, front yard's clear." I hung up, ignoring Brandon's annoyed huff. "This isn't the time for calls, Nicole. We're discussing serious family business." I leaned back on my stool, calm as ever. "Just sorting my ride, don't worry." Kimberly raised an eyebrow, laughing. "Another taxi. You really need to get a car one day." I just smiled, letting their smugness hang in the air. 5 minutes later, the unmistakable roar of helicopter blades cut through the morning quiet, growing louder until it was impossible to ignore. Mom peered out the window, her eyes wide. "What in the world?" Dad shuffled to her side, squinting. Kimberly stood, her phone slipping to the couch. "Is that allowed here?" she stammered. I gathered my backpack, standing up. "No need to call anyone, that's for me." Their faces froze. Brandon's jaw tight, Mom's hand clutching Dad's. Kimberly's eyes darting to the window. The sleek black helicopter settled onto the front lawn, its rotors bending the grass, shaking the vineyard trellises. My pilot Ryan gave a quick wave from the cockpit, his uniform crisp. I walked to the door, turning back to their stunned stares. "My ride's here," I said simply, opening the door as the engines idled. Kimberly's face went pale, her knees buckling, and she crumpled to the couch, in a faint, her designer skirt fanning out. Mom gasped, fanning her with a magazine while Brandon stood rooted, his usual confidence cracked. Dad just stared, muttering Nicole like he was seeing me for the first time. I stepped outside the helicopter's roar, drowning their whispers, and gestured for them to follow. "Come on, we're not done yet. Let's take this somewhere else." They hesitated, but the sheer shock pulled them out, stumbling toward the chopper like they had no choice. My heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of flipping their world upside down, knowing they were about to see the truth they'd never imagined. The helicopter's roar filled the air as we lifted off from Pine Valley, my family strapped in, faces pale from shock. Kimberly still shaky from fainting, Brandon gripping the seat like he could control it. Mom and Dad staring out the window, wide-eyed. Ryan, my pilot, gave me a quick nod through his headset, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to my faded jeans. We banked toward the 20-acre ranch I'd bought 6 months ago just outside LA, a sprawling spread with rolling fields, a modern farmhouse, and a private helipad tucked behind a grove of oaks. As we landed, the dust swirled, and I caught their stunned glances at the property stretching out before us. "Welcome to my place," I said, stepping out, leading them toward the farmhouse where Brittany, my assistant, waited with a tablet and a professional smile. Brandon recovered, first his voice sharp. "What the hell is this?" "Nicole." I gestured to the sleek living room with its open windows and vineyard-inspired decor, motioning for them to sit on leather couches around an oak coffee table. "This is home, my company's regional base." Kimberly, clutching her purse, snapped. "Your company." "Since when do you have a company?" I sat down, calm as ever. EcoGuard, my environmental startup founded 8 years ago. We built a carbon tracking app for businesses, sold it for $40 million 6 months ago. I kept my role and equity. The silence was deafening, Mom's jaw dropped. Dad blinked slowly. Brandon's face went red. $40 million, Dad muttered like he was testing the words. "My Nicole." I nodded, turning to Brittany, who handed me a folder. "That's not all. I set up the Westbrook Foundation. It runs a care community for memory patients like Dad. Mom and Dad's spots are already secured, fully funded." Kimberly's eyes narrowed. "You're saying you've been sitting on millions and never told us why?" I leaned forward, voice steady. "Because you never asked. You assumed I was a failure." Brandon, with his "get a real job," jabs you with your rumors about me being unstable. Every holiday call, every visit, you wrote me off as the broke youngest who'd never make it. Brandon scoffed. "You let us think you were struggling. Don't pin this on us." I opened the folder, sliding out documents. "There's more. Brandon, your big promotion. The one you got pitching my app idea as your own. It's crumbling. Your firm's in debt because you've been living beyond your means, maxing credit to keep up that winery mansion lifestyle." His face froze, eyes darting to Kimberly, who gasped. "How do you know that?" he stammered. "I have contacts," I said simply. "And one last thing, I've been paying Mom and Dad's medical bills for 2 years, anonymous donations through their account. Every insurance refund you thanked was me thousands to keep them stable." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "That was you," she whispered. Dad looked at me clearer than I'd seen him in months. "You did that for us?" I nodded, feeling the weight of their stares. I cared even when you didn't see me. Kimberly's face twisted, torn between shock and something darker. So what, you're flaunting this to make us look bad? Showing off your money to rub it in? Her voice cracked, revealing a raw edge. My life's not perfect either. My marriage is a mess. The galas feel empty, but I don't hide behind some secret empire to prove a point. Brandon jumped in, his tone defensive. You could have told us, Nicole. Instead, you play this game letting us look like fools. My firm's fine, and that idea wasn't just yours, I built on it. I shook my head. You stole it, Brandon. And Kimberly, you spread lies that cost me contacts, family, years of trust. I hid because every time I tried to share, you shut me down, called my work a hobby, my dreams flaky. Mom tried to intervene. Nicole, we didn't mean to hurt you. I cut her off gently. You didn't ask either, Mom. You all decided I was the failure and ran with it. The air grew thick, accusations flying. Kimberly's voice rose. You're just selfish, keeping this from us to play the hero now. Brandon added, you think you're better than us because you got lucky with some app. Their words stung, but the Genti in their eyes, jealousy of my quiet success, burned brighter, a twist on the resentment I'd felt for years. They weren't sorry, just mad they'd been wrong. Tyler, my chef, brought in lunch. Winery-style plates of grilled salmon herb salads, artisan bread, his eyes wide as he caught the tension, a silent witness to the drama. Brittany stood by, ready with more documents if needed. The table was set, but no one touched the food, the room crackling with unresolved anger. I looked at them, Brandon's clenched fists, Kimberly's trembling lips, Mom and Dad's confused faces, and realized this wasn't going anywhere. Their accusations weren't about understanding me. They were about protecting their own egos. The fight peaked, voices overlapping, no resolution in sight, and I knew what I had to do next. The air in the ranch's living room hung heavy, the untouched lunch, grilled salmon herb salads, artisan bread sitting cold on the oak table as accusations bounced between us. Brandon's fists stayed clenched, his voice sharp. You're twisting this, Nicole, making us the bad guys to feel better about your sneaky millions. Kimberly's lips trembled, her eyes flashing with that same tie I'd seen before. You hid all this to play the victim, didn't you? Acting broke while we worried? Mom tried again, softer. We didn't know, honey, we thought you needed help. Dad just watched, his clarity fading, muttering, Nicole's done good. I looked at them. Their words a mix of denial and anger. No trace of real regret. Brandon doubled down, his tone manipulative. My firm's not in trouble, you're throwing dirt to look superior. And that app idea I made, it worked, not you. Kimberly jumped in, voice shrill. My marriage isn't perfect, sure, but I don't need your pity or your secret charity to feel okay. Their defensiveness wasn't new, it was the same old pattern, protecting their egos instead of facing the truth. I'd hoped for a crack, some hint they'd see me differently, but their accusations only proved they'd never change. I stood up, voice calm but firm. I didn't come here to play hero or victim. I came for Mom and Dad. You've made it clear you don't care who I really am, only how my success makes you look. Brittany handed me another folder, this one with legal papers. The Westbrook Foundation has a trust set up for Mom and Dad, full care, medical, everything, no cost to them or you. It's done, no input needed. Mom's eyes widened. You're doing all that? I nodded. I've been doing it. You don't need to worry. Brandon's face twisted. So you're cutting us out, typical Nicole, always the outsider. Kimberly scoffed. You think you're above us now, throwing money at problems. Their words didn't sting anymore. They just confirmed what I already knew. I turned to Brittany. Get the chopper ready, I'm heading back. She nodded, stepping out to call Ryan. Tyler, the chef, lingered by the door, his wide eyes catching the fallout as he cleared the plates. I faced my family one last time. I'm done trying to prove myself to you. You've got your lives, your assumptions, keep them. I'm not part of this anymore. Kimberly's voice cracked. You're just walking away. After all this, I met her gaze. Yeah, Kimberly, I am. Good luck with your galas. Brandon snorted. You'll regret this when you need us. I didn't reply, just walked out to the helipad where Ryan had the helicopter spinning up. As we lifted off, I saw them standing in the doorway, Brandon fuming, Kimberly clutching her purse. Mom and Dad confused, but silent. The ranch shrank below LA's skyline coming into view, and a weight lifted off my chest. Back in the city, I blocked their numbers, set up the trust to handle Mom and Dad's care without my direct involvement, and let Brittany handle the rest. The consequences hit fast. Brandon's firm got a tip from my contacts about his debt, sparking an internal audit that tanked his golden boy status. Kimberly's rumors about me backfired when winery friends learned the truth, leaving her social circle whispering about her instead. I didn't care to watch it unfold. I was done. Sitting in my loft, looking out at the ocean, I felt lighter than I had in years. This whole mess showed me self-respect beats. Family approval, every time cutting out those who drag you down opens doors to real support. I'd spent years chasing their validation, letting their betrayal define me, but no more. My success my way was enough. Don't stick around for validation from judgers. Build ties that lift you up, instead people who see you for you, not their version of you. Thanks for hearing my side. Subscribe for more family drama stories. Comment if you've ever cut toxic ties, too. I'd love to hear your story.
Glowing softly under the sunlight that poured through the window. Ivory lace, hand-stitched sleeves, delicate but strong. Just like I wanted to feel on the day I finally became a bride. I'd invited my family over to see it. Just a small moment. Something I thought we'd remember. My dad walked in first, followed by my sister Ivy. She barely looked at me. Her eyes went straight to the dress. I was beaming, heart full. "Isn't it beautiful?" I asked. Dad didn't smile. He sat down. Quiet. Heavy. Like he was about to deliver bad news. And then he did. "I've been thinking," he said, carefully. "It's your duty to consider what's best for the family." Ivy's been struggling. Ivy tilted her head, smiling like the cat who already swallowed the canary. Dad continued, "She's always been special. You know that. This wedding, maybe it should be hers." My ears rang. I thought I misheard. I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "She's fragile," he said. "You've always had more strength. You can get married anytime. But Ivy? She needs this now." I stared at him, then at her. And Ivy had the audacity to shrug and say, "He's a good man, Ratch. I think he'd be happier with me." She was talking about Lucas. My fiancé. My wedding. No shame. No guilt. And my mother? Silent. Not even in the room. Like she knew what was coming and didn't want to look me in the eye. They weren't asking me to share something. They were asking me to give it up. All of it. The venue I picked. The date I chose. The man I loved. And what's worse, they thought I would. Because I always had. I looked down at the engagement ring Lucas had picked with shaking hands and more love than anyone in that room had ever shown me. I looked back up. My voice didn't shake. "Okay," I said quietly. "You can stop planning. Because none of you are coming." Ivy blinked. "What?" "You're uninvited," I said. "All of you." Then I picked up my dress, walked out of my childhood home, and shut the door behind me. My name is Rachel Moore. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because when they tried to give my wedding to my sister, I didn't just take it back. I took everything they thought I'd sacrifice. I've spent most of my life being asked to understand. Understand Ivy's condition. Understand Ivy's moods. Understand that Ivy can't handle pressure the way you can. I was 5 years old when I first noticed it. Ivy had a meltdown in the grocery store because they were out of the cereal she liked. She screamed, kicked the cart, threw herself on the floor. My mother turned to me and said, "Rachel, can you be a big girl and let her have your snack too? You know she's sensitive." That's what I was raised to be, the big girl. The one who gave up her portion. The one who didn't complain. The one who understood. When Ivy didn't want to share a room growing up, I was moved to the attic. When she failed her driving test, they blamed the instructor. When she dropped out of college after 2 semesters, my parents paid for her wellness retreat with the money I had been saving for my first apartment. I didn't protest. Not once. Because every time I tried, I was told the same thing. It's not her fault. She's delicate. You're strong. She needs more support than you do. And I believed it. I really did. I bent. I adjusted. I minimized my own wins so they wouldn't outshine her. When I got into grad school, my parents asked me not to post about it. It might make Ivy feel like she's falling behind. So I didn't. I celebrated quietly.
Alone.
When Ivy's Etsy shop failed, I helped pay off her vendor debt. When she totaled her car, I co-signed a lease for a new one. When she wanted to move to LA to find herself, I let her crash in my apartment while she figured things out. She stayed for 8 months, didn't pay rent once, used my skincare, took my clothes, flirted with my coworkers. But I was always reminded she's family. She's special. She didn't mean it. So when my dad asked me to hand her my wedding, my fiancé, my joy, I shouldn't have been surprised. They'd trained me for that moment my entire life. And I almost did it. Out of reflex, out of habit, out of guilt. But something about the way Ivy smirked, the way she sat there, already imagining herself in my dress, woke something up in me. A voice I hadn't heard since childhood. And it said, "You've given them everything. This time, keep something for yourself." Lucas didn't say a word when I told him. He just sat across from me on the couch, hands steepled, jaw tight, as I repeated the words my father said. "It's your duty. Ivy's special. Give her your wedding." And then I added Ivy's part. He'd be happier with me anyway. Lucas blinked. Slowly. Like he was trying to process whether he was angry or just disgusted. Then he said, "Did they forget I was part of this wedding?" I shrugged. "I think they never thought of you as a person. Just part of the package." He leaned forward. "Rachel, I love you. I asked you to marry me. I don't care what they think." "I know," I said softly. But it wasn't about what Lucas thought. It was about what they never did. The next few days felt like slow-motion freefall. Ivy posted a photo on Instagram. Her in my wedding dress. My dress. Captioned, "Trying something new. Manifesting what's meant to be ring sparkles." It wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. She had no shame. She truly believed she could have whatever she wanted because she always had. And then the messages started. My aunt texted, "Can't you just let her have this one moment? She's struggled her whole life." A family friend commented under my engagement photo, "Weddings come and go, but sisters are forever. Be the bigger person, Ratch. Be the bigger person." I could write a book called That Phrase Killed Me. Even my mother, who hadn't spoken since the whole thing began, called me one night and said, "You know Ivy doesn't cope well with disappointment. Please don't escalate things." Escalate things? I just uninvited them from my wedding after they tried to hand it to my sister like a spare piece of jewelry. But that was the pattern, wasn't it? Me protecting Ivy from pain. Me being reasonable. Me giving up and giving in. And all the while, no one noticed I was grieving the loss of my own joy. My own ceremony. My own family. They didn't see me crying in the bathroom. Or how I returned the original invitations in silence. Or how I told the florist to put the order on hold, without a refund. They were blind to my joy because they never thought I was entitled to it. And that was when the rage cooled. And clarity took its place. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to disappear from their narrative and write one where I was no longer the footnote to Ivy's chaos. 2 days after the Instagram post, I deleted every trace of my original wedding plan. The shared calendar?
Gone.
The guest list spreadsheet? Wiped clean. The family WhatsApp group? Muted. Then archived. And then I sat at my laptop with a fresh document and typed 2 words. Start over.
Lucas sat beside me.
No pressure, no questions. Just support. We began reimagining our day, not around what was expected, but around what we actually wanted.
A smaller ceremony.
Outdoors. Intimate. No crowd of judging relatives. No parents who saw me as a spare part. No sister who thought she could wear my dress and steal my future. We changed the date. Moved the venue to a private estate 2 towns over, one Ivy would never think to look up. We chose a sunset time slot. We rebooked a new photographer. We reprinted invitations with a whole new vibe. But most importantly, we made a new guest list. People who had loved us well. Friends who called to check in, not just to gossip. My mentor from college. Lucas's childhood best friend who once said, "You're the first person who makes him breathe easier." We sent invites directly. No public posts. No mailing list through family. We told guests, "Please don't share. This wedding is sacred."
And it was.
Not because it was grand, but because it was finally ours. My dress, my vows, my joy, untouched by guilt. I even picked a new song for the walk down the aisle. A softer one. One that felt like a goodbye to everything I used to carry. The day before our wedding, I sent one final message. To my parents. To Ivy. It said, "The wedding has moved. You will not be receiving the new location. There is nothing left for you to take. I don't need your blessing. I just needed your absence." I didn't send it to hurt them. I sent it to reclaim something I didn't even realize I had surrendered. My name. My love. My voice. And as Lucas kissed my forehead that night and whispered, "You ready for tomorrow?" I smiled and said, "I've never been more ready for anything." The original wedding date arrived like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Ivy posted a photo of herself that morning, sipping coffee, face full of makeup, captioned, "Today's the day," as if she'd manifested her way into someone else's life. My father reposted it on his story with, "Proud of my girls. Big day for the family." Lucas and I saw it from the dressing room of our real wedding venue, a sun-drenched garden lined with white orchids and soft lanterns. I was already in my gown. A new one. Simpler.
Softer. Mine.
No family heirlooms. No veil borrowed from a mother who didn't defend me. Our officiant was a friend who'd known Lucas and me since we were just co-workers eating lunch out of paper bags. The seats were filled, but only with people who knew what we'd survived. Who knew this wasn't just a wedding. It was a reclamation. While I was adjusting my bouquet, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a florist. "Hi, Rachel. Just confirming we canceled the arrangement at the old venue per your request." Some guests still showed up confused. I pictured it, my father, standing in a dark, undecorated ballroom, waiting for a wedding that would never happen. Ivy, dressed in my first gown, holding a bouquet she arranged herself, wondering why the music never played. And then another message popped up from an old high school friend who I hadn't invited. "Hey, your sister's having a meltdown outside the Elmview Hotel. She's screaming at the staff saying it's her wedding and everyone's late." I handed the phone to Lucas. He read it, laughed once, then kissed my hand. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. We walked toward the archway, lined with friends who stood as I entered, not out of obligation, but joy. I never once thought about who wasn't there, because I finally realized you don't need the people who taught you to disappear. You need the ones who help you take up space. After the ceremony, we posted one photo. Just one. It was us under the lanterns, holding hands, smiling without fear. The caption read, "Surrounded by love." No guilt invited. No mention of what happened. No retaliation. Just truth. The comment section filled fast. "You look so peaceful. This is what happiness looks like." Real love doesn't come with terms. My father didn't comment. My mother didn't call. Ivy deleted all her posts by the end of the night. And I danced. For the first time, not because I was expected to show up, but because I chose to. And that made all the difference. The fallout didn't happen immediately. That would have been too easy. It trickled in one awkward message at a time. My cousin Josh texted first. "Hey, were you actually married this weekend? I thought I was going to Ivy's wedding." Then my dad's coworker commented under our photo. "Congratulations, Rachel. Beautiful wedding. Surprised your folks didn't mention the change." Publicly, my family tried to spin it. They claimed I had a breakdown, that I changed the wedding plans without telling anyone. Ivy posted a crying selfie with a caption. Some people would rather see you sad than see you shine. I'll rise anyway. But the story didn't stick. Because while they were busy managing optics, the truth was unraveling everywhere. Guests from the original wedding day started sharing what they saw. Ivy throwing a tantrum in the hotel parking lot. My dad yelling at the hotel staff for not fixing it. My mom sobbing on a bench, whispering, "She actually did it, she went through with it." Meanwhile, my real guests were posting joy, laughter, candids, dancing under fairy lights. People noticed. And people talked. Relatives who had once sided with my parents quietly reached out. One aunt messaged me, "I'm sorry. I see it now. I should have spoken up years ago." Even friends of Ivy's started distancing themselves. Screenshots of her messages trying to recruit sympathy were shared in group chats. She stole the wedding. That was meant to be mine. But all anyone could ask was, wait, wasn't that her sister's fiancé? She tried to take her man? The shift was delicious. Not because I craved revenge, but because justice doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes it just needs silence. The kind of silence I gave them when they showed up at the wrong place. The kind of silence I gave them when they realized the power had shifted. The kind of silence they used to punish me turned into my most powerful weapon. Then, one rainy afternoon, Ivy showed up at my doorstep. Makeup smudged, eyes red, dress clinging to her like a ghost she couldn't shake. She held out her phone. "You've ruined everything. I can't go anywhere without people whispering." I didn't move, didn't flinch.
She sobbed.
I just wanted to be seen. You always had it together.
I didn't know how to be that.
For a brief moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. Then I said, "You didn't want to be seen, Ivy. You wanted to take. And you thought I'd let you again." I stepped back and closed the door.
Gently.
Without a single word more. Because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's a door that stays shut. I used to think that healing would look like forgiveness. Like mended ties. Reunions. Smiling family dinners. But I learned that sometimes healing means never going back to the same table where they served you shame and called it tradition. After the wedding, I went quiet online. No long posts. No explainers. Just peace. And it was loud in its own way. Lucas and I spent our honeymoon hiking through forests in silence, cooking meals barefoot in a cabin, making promises without pressure. No parents. No drama. No guilt. Just joy that didn't ask for permission. When we got home, I legally changed my name to Rachel Moore. Not because I didn't value my family name, but because I needed to build something that was mine. Unedited. Untouched.
Free.
I started journaling again. Then blogging. What began as a quiet online diary turned into something bigger. A digital space for women like me. For the daughters told to be smaller. For the sisters erased in the shadow of the fragile one. I called it uninvited. Every post was raw. No fluff. No fake empowerment quotes. Just honesty. Posts like, they didn't ask me how I was. They just asked me to step aside. Love that comes with a receipt isn't love. It's a transaction. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is shut the door without slamming it. The response was overwhelming. Emails. DMs. Women from around the world writing. "You told my story. I didn't know anyone else felt like this. Your wedding post gave me the courage to call off mine." I started getting invited to speak on panels, podcasts, community events. Not as the girl who got walked over, but as the woman who finally stood up. Lucas would listen from the back of the room, eyes warm, never needing to be the center of anything, because he knew I'd had enough of being erased. He'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "There she is." And I'd smile, because for the first time in my life, I recognized the woman everyone was seeing. Not the fixer. Not the giver. Not the sacrifice. Rachel Moore. Unedited. Our first anniversary arrived on a quiet Sunday. No grand plans. No crowds. Just me, Lucas, and the life we built on the ashes of everything they tried to take. I spent the morning planting jasmine in our backyard, the same flower that had lined the aisle at our wedding. It's strange how something as delicate as a petal can remind you of power, of softness that stood its ground. We didn't go out that night. We stayed in, slow-cooked dinner, played old vinyls, danced in the living room. Lucas held me close and whispered, "1 year, and I'd still choose you in a room full of chaos." I laughed. "Let's not invite the chaos this time." He kissed my forehead.
Deal.
Later, as I sat scrolling through old photos from that day, I stumbled upon one I hadn't posted before. Me, walking down the aisle alone, head high,
Dress flowing.
sunlight kissing my cheek. No father to give me away. No sister waiting to interrupt. Just me, reclaiming the space I was told I didn't deserve. I posted it with a short caption. "The day I chose myself." Minutes later, a message pinged in my inbox. It was from someone I didn't know. Her name was Maya. She wrote, "I found her blog 3 months ago. I was planning a wedding I didn't even want, just to please a family that never really saw me. Then I read your story. I canceled everything. I thought I'd feel like a failure, but instead, I feel free. Thank you for showing me what choosing yourself can look like." I stared at the message for a long time, because that's what this had always been about. Not revenge, not exposure, not even vindication, but freedom. Freedom from family dynamics that shrink you. Freedom from guilt disguised as love. Freedom from applause that only comes when you're giving more than you can bear. That wedding? It didn't just unite me with Lucas. It saved me. It gave me a door to walk through, one that I didn't have to leave open for anyone who didn't respect it. And now I know this. The most powerful vows are the ones you make to yourself. To stop begging for space. To stop funding your own pain. To stop confusing being the bigger person with being the silent one. They thought taking my wedding would break me. But in the end, it made me whole. Because what they tried to ruin became the beginning of everything I was always meant to be.